Here we are at the final panel of the evening, the Undefeated Roundtable, and our Generation Next. I get to be your favorite auntie up here with the young people. And guys, we are going to talk about what it means to be doing athletics now, to be media, to be athletes, to take into account everything we've heard in terms of the influence and the platforms, and then to future cast a little bit. You know, Alanis Thames, you are a communications major, you're a journalist, you're an intern, a sports intern at the Miami Herald. Cameron Hall is a soccer player, a freshman soccer player. You're interested in social justice, women and gender equality issues. And of course we have Grant Holloway, our newly minted world champion in the 110-meter hurdles. So congratulations. Heading off to the Olympics. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. What, Alanis, I'll start with you. What is it that you think media should be doing in this moment when you're talking about trying to tell authentic stories? What does that look like as someone who's a practitioner, who's, you know, out in the field and then looking forward to a career?
For me as a member of the media, I think it's important to, especially in our climate, to sort of weigh every side and to understand that things that athletes and different people are talking about, these are things that they're very impassioned about, and sometimes it's hard to sort of separate yourself from the things that you're talking about, but that's pretty much the biggest thing that media members have to remember, is to sort of separate yourself from the emotions of some pretty tough subjects that are being brought to the forefront of our nation. And like you mentioned, just stay authentic, tell the truth, tell the story of the athlete that you're covering, or, you know, when you're going into a community and covering different things, just be authentic and understand that there's always going to be more than one side to a story, and it's important for us as members of the media to try to address as many of those sides as possible.
So Cameron, for you, what do you see as the opportunities for engagement in your sport?
I think as a white woman in this country, I'm never going to know what it is like to be a part of the Black community in the United States. But what I can do is be as empathetic as possible, as compassionate, incite myself, and encourage and walk with those people and not be quiet about things that matter. So for me, it's using my social media platform and using the platform that soccer gives me to speak out about things that matter.
You were talking about being very influenced, for instance, by Megan Rapinoe, the World Cup soccer champion that was very outspoken about parity and issues in soccer. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about what kind of influence that had on you in terms of how you see yourself and you center yourself in this dialogue.
Right. I think just seeing what she did in the most recent World Cup was amazing. She spoke out on things that truly mattered within the United States, and it was recognized. But I think for us, it's important to learn about those things and be insightful about those so that we can reproduce that in our social media, because obviously we have different followers and different following from young guys, young girls. And so it's encouraging to see, you know, the young boys, the young women, the older people dressing up as her in like the last Halloween that we had. It's just really encouraging because, you know, what she's speaking about is now coming to light and really pushing to the forefront.
Right. And so, Mr. Holloway, you are headed into a season where if you thought you got a lot of attention before, you know, you will not be able to outrun this attention, right? Tell me what you are trying to do in terms of your engagement, in terms of seeing opportunities with media and what that means, and in terms of what it is that you're trying to put forth in your sports and your personal walk.
Right, so it's real simple for me. I'm a very outgoing, easy-spoken guy, but the biggest thing is just a lot of people from past interviews and the past sessions that we have, they always talked about their faith. And, you know, going forward, having my faith has been a strong keynote in everything that I do. So my biggest thing is just being a vessel to everybody else, you know. When someone is with me for 5-10 minutes, maybe even they just see me in their presence, my goal as an individual is to make sure that you are happy. And can I get one of those too, boss? I'm sorry about that. My goal is to make sure, you know, when you're in my presence, is you forget about any bad thoughts or anything that's going wrong in your life. And so, you know, just with social media and everything, it's been known, and I've told mostly a good amount of my friends that I really don't run my social media. I think social media, it could be interpreted in different ways. Mostly, I just run my Twitter, and Twitter are my views and my thoughts only. I see a lot of funny videos, and it's, you know, I can say what I want about those, but like mostly with social media, I try to stay away from it just because it has a negative connotation sometimes. So, you know, my goal going forward in the future is to figure out, all right, how can I connect with, you know, you or fans or other coaches or other athletes in a way that doesn't use Instagram, that doesn't use Twitter, that doesn't use Facebook, MySpace, AOL, I don't know, whatever social media platform that's out there. How am I able to reach out to other athletes and still get my point across?
Well, and let's talk about that, because you also just turned pro.
Correct.
And so you're a brand ambassador. And so how does that work? How does that operationalize? And you speak often of your faith and just wanting to be this guy, this dude that spreads joy. Certainly people get joy watching you run faster and, you know, do it better than any collegiate in history. So how do you square up those competing sort of demands?
You can't really answer that question without kind of like going on the outside of it. So like when you ask me that question, it's like, all right, how do I escape it? Like you said, there's no escaping it. That's just who I am. That's just the sport. That's the demand of what I have to do. But going forward is, all right, how can I set a new norm for the athletes after my generation? All right. So like we're here now. How can I make sure they get a little kickstart, a little head start going forward? That's the job of, you know, our generation. That's the job that I'm pushing on myself. Like I'm going to take it and be the leader. All right, but how can I make sure that the next generations and the next generations live a better life than I did?
Right, right. And as the auntie, I'll be the one to co-sign and be like, yeah, get off the little social media or whatever. Cameron, we talked about this. You all are digital natives. And so you're in your sport and you're talking about the influence, for instance, that you had watching the World Cup, the Women's World Cup soccer championship. How did that operationalize in terms of the ways that you interacted with people on social media? How did you, sort of find your lane in that and figure out, well, I want to say this, I want to rebut that? How did you engage?
Right. At the end of the day, Generation Z is not going to get their information from the newspaper or magazines. They're going to get it from scrolling through Twitter or Instagram. So I think that our priority as athletes, especially with the platform that we do, is making sure that we're speaking on topics that matter. Because if we learn about those things and we have information about those and we speak about them, then obviously, we're going to reach to those younger people.
Right. But now, Alanis, interrogate that, because you're a journalist, right? And so if people your age are getting their information from social media as their primary source, then how do you get the word out, like, all sources ain't equal, right? My boy got a website.com is not the same as the Miami Herald. So how do you how do you educate, how do you stay relevant in that kind of media ecosystem and still do the kind of reporting and tell the stories that you were talking about?
You meet the readers where they are. You go on Twitter, you social out your stories, you tell the story via social media as well as through whatever medium you work for. And sometimes it means doing a little more work, but that's just how it is. And people who are really dedicated to telling stories and to getting messages out wouldn't mind going the extra mile if that means more people are understanding the stories that we're telling.
The ways that I've come to think of it as someone who came up through newspapers is that you have to master the conventions of the form. This is the new form, right? And so you have to be educated and relevant in that form, because that's going to be the one, like you said, where people are primarily getting all of their news. I'm going to ask you now to future cast a little bit, right? And so what is it looking forward that you would like to see yourself do as a sports journalist, as a media person, journalist, you know, in this kind of space where there's all this opportunity, but also all this peril?
Moving forward, I would say just to continue to be a connection between athletes who are finding their voices in their different spaces and who are understanding the importance of their voices, to continue to be a liaison between them and the people who they want their messages to reach. There are a lot of athletes who are now understanding that it's important to use, like Grant was saying, use their social media to connect with other athletes, or use their social media to connect with people who look up to them or who want to one day be like them, who want to one day be in the position to be able to inspire someone else. So it's my job, and it's always going to be my job as a member of the media, to be that connection, be a medium between people who aren't accessible to the regular person, and to allow them to see that.
So when you say be a connection, that means mining these social media accounts and sometimes translating, right?
Yeah.
Because there are people who are not going to know what they're looking at. And so do you see your role as being that kind of translator?
Yeah, of course. And like I was saying earlier, just to tell it, and sometimes when athletes take to social media, it's sometimes very fiery. They're very passionate about what they're saying. It's sort of my job to, in a more level-headed way, explain or give the report so that it's understood by the masses.
Cameron, same question. If you were to future cast, you have a number of years left playing soccer and you know, also engaging around some of these issues. If you were to future cast, what does that look like as you move forward in your sports career, and then as you're looking, as you're a consumer of media, and then in terms of tweeting things out, you know, also to an extent a producer?
I think it's very exciting. I think the future, especially for women, is really bright. Seeing that the Australian women are just now getting equal pay to the men, I think that's exciting. And I think being a part of this generation that's pushing that movement is very exciting. And just being able to speak on those things and being able to play a sport where we know that, you know, there's more things coming in the future and what we're doing is being seen. And I think that's just...
So when you say being able to speak on those things, so for instance, not going to myboysgotawebsite.com, but really kind of educating yourself, how do you spread that word? Because all information is not equal.
Right.
I think that's the big challenge, especially in an environment where there can be disinformation.
I think it's using all your resources, looking at all the angles of the problem, and then creating your opinion off of that. I think that obviously there are very skewed opinions out there, and sometimes, like she said, the athletes do come on fiery, but I think with using information that you go in and try and find, and you find yourself, that it's easier to become or have a more level-headed opinion off of that.
And so, Grant, if you were to future cast, I don't know how far you want to go. Have you already won the Olympics, or? But looking forward, you know, how do you do that representation of your authentic self on this platform that parts of you can get down with, but parts of you, sort of stay away from? What is your sort of future self with that kind of engagement and opportunities?
I think the opportunities are endless going into the future. I think us as a generation, my generation is moving forward and setting a new norm. I think that will be kind of I think that will kind of be the starting point. And then I think, like they say, most athletes are passionate about what they do. I know I'm passionate about what I do. But I think the biggest rule is, going forward for reporters doing interviews on athletes, or athletes asking to be interviewed, is just to know the position that they're in, know what's happening in their life. You only spending 5 minutes with them throughout the day, not the whole 24 hours, so you don't exactly see everything that's going on in their life. But just to kickstart it, I think the biggest thing is just being passionate about what you do. And I know most people say, I have a way of my words, and I love to speak, and I love to communicate with people. So like the biggest thing is like when you talk to me, you know you're gonna get nothing but the truth and all the truth. But I think where some people, you know, go wrong is, oh, Grant talks too much, or Grant is too passionate about track. I think they say all Grant knows is track. So, you know, going forward, it's just, you know, having reporters know who they're dealing with and what they're dealing with, and then going forward is just, you know, having everybody be on the same playing field.
But you're also a young person, and so that too passionate, that, you know, all of that, some of that just comes with the territory, and of course with social media, you put something out and it, you know, sort of stays with you. Are you all mindful of that kind of, not even just responsibility, it is that when you make a mistake in public, that unlike previous generations, like you can't dig up some old papers, whereas, you know, you could.
Personally, I do think it's unfair, just because, you know, I could do something that a normal person could do on this campus, and I'm plastered on the front page of the news versus someone who did the same thing a week ago, and he's nowhere to be found. Like, it's just swept under the table. But the rule is that everybody says the media is like a war zone. You know, whatever they can get their hands on, they will love to put it out there and publish it, you know, just to get paid. I think the recent article that I just read is someone said Dan Mullen's wife was sexually harassing the football team just for showing love before football games. And me personally, I think that dude was just trying to get paid. I think he had to put out one more paper just to, you know, meet the ends just to get paid. And I think the article was complete BS. But in my opinion, that's what people have to do in order, you know, with this day and age of media and everything going forward. I think if they put out something just so they can get money in their pocket, I think they'll do it. And like I said, it's unfair. I can do one thing, but then someone else could do the same thing, but I'm plastered on the news.
Alanis, that's what you're going to be up against, right? Because it's a consider the source kind of thing. So we all get tainted. I can't tell you how much side eye I get, you know. I have to talk fast and really, you know, sort of try to make myself known. But like when you are entering into these spaces, there are people who are distrustful because of the very thing that Grant was talking about. How do you combat that while still maximizing, right? You're a reporter. You do want to tell us a story. You want it to be revealing. You know, we would like to get paid. Like, I don't think there's anything, but not exploitative, not inauthentic, not, you know, sort of wrong and harmful. How do you navigate that space in terms of how you're looking to the future?
Just understanding my personal role. I can't control what other journalists do or how they, you know, seek stories or whatever, but if you are truly passionate about storytelling and being someone who tells stories about athletes who are sometimes misunderstood, and, you know, sometimes the only other option is to, you know, go to them and talk to them and understand their side so that people can see a different side of them. I think if I continue to understand that is my role, not, you know, sometimes it can be sort of a popularity contest, but understanding that I need to stay true to my job as a journalist, and that's to inform people, it's not always to incite, you know, a rage out of people. You know, my passion has always been just simply understanding athletes and telling stories to people who don't know them in that way.
Right, and all follows, all attention is not the same, right? So you get to choose, you get to center yourself in a place that you want to be journalistically. And don't you also, Cameron, get to make judgments and actively rebut things that you're seeing that that don't sync with what you've learned and what you understood? Like, what is the role in terms of also correcting some records real quick?
Right. I think with success comes a lot of responsibility. So I think knowing that if you are successful, you have eyes on you, but I also think you have a voice too. So I think that there's opportunity to stand up against false accusations or something that you don't agree with in a respectful way, because I think everyone has the right to say, you know, what they feel.
Right, and the forum will have to get better, because as that becomes especially people's primary, you know, format, it's going to have to get better. It's going to have to evolve. I think we'd like to do another roundtable first, which is take questions from the audience.
It's the best time.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that. Grant might have some questions for you all, you know. But do you have any questions for Alanis, for Cameron, for Grant? Anyone? Can you stand up, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
From like a college standpoint and being a college athlete and having sports information directors and all that going on, do you guys feel like you have been minimized in your freedom of speech as being a college athlete and what you're allowed to post and it's like forth on from there?
Oh, I love that. That's a filter question.
Ladies first.
Okay. Personally, no. I think my coaches do a good job of allowing us to express ourselves the way we want to, and I think I can feel free to voice whatever I feel or believe.
Now, I take a complete different standpoint. I love Becky so much, but with me, if I'm gonna put something out there, I'm gonna say it. And I have posted plenty of stuff where it can be like, what is Grant posting? Like, I have posted plenty of stuff, but I feel like I have a social media for me, not for the University of Florida, not for Gators track and field, not for USATF. It's for me and my purposes only. So if you think something shouldn't be on my Instagram or my Twitter, all right, that's your opinion, but too bad it's my account.
Well, that really kind of syncs with this whole conversation about the NCAA. Y'all really like that one. That really syncs with this whole conversation about the NCAA and control, right? And, you know, sort of, Alanis, where do you see that coming down? Because, you know, the genie is out of the bottle, right? We're not going back to the days where athletes, you know, sit there, you can't have any access to them. They won't communicate. They won't try to get their message out. How do you see that increasing in the future? What is your sort of perception of how that plays out now and in the future?
I definitely see athletes using their voices more, using their Twitter, Instagram accounts more, understanding that they are brands and they control their brand, and it's definitely moving in that direction, and they're not afraid to control their own narratives and to understand their worth and understand that they have power as athletes, whether it's a student athlete, whether it's a professional athlete, and we're seeing that now moving in that direction more and more.
We have time for one more question from the floor. Can you stand up, please?
Sure. So for Grant, I guess my question is, so you touched a little bit about how you kind of prefer sometimes to engage personally through like community events,
Correct.
Not necessarily over Instagram. Do you ever kind of feel capped that people don't see that, you know, that version of you because it's not necessarily on a social media platform? Do you ever struggle with that?
I wouldn't say I necessarily struggle with it, but I feel like I can't touch everybody at once. Like it's hard to reach out to everybody. So like kind of what I do is like whenever I go to, you know, events, I mean, for example, last week, Professor Sparker let me come to his class, and it was awesome. Like I had some of the students ask me questions, and then I was able to do a giveaway, and I had some leftover gear. I was able to give away some of the gear to students, and I just think like wherever I'm at, it's a chance to, you know, to give, you know, and that's the thing. Like if you send me a message, I might not get to it for 2-3 weeks. Don't get me wrong, but I'm going to try to, you know, give it as much time, attention, affection like I do anybody else, because it's hard to catch me, not in the running standpoint, but it is hard to, you know, get in contact with me when I know personally I do not get on social media like that. I don't run my social media account. I only run Twitter, and then most of the time on Twitter I'm only watching funny videos. Like it's hard to, you know, catch up with me in a sense, but like when I'm able to, see the message that someone sent, even though it's from August, all right, I'm able to reach out, send it. All right, you want a shirt? Okay, I can easily sign a shirt, send it to you, bada bing, bada boom. Bless life, less like that.
It's so funny listening to you all talk, because the concerns and the, you know, the things facing Generation Z are just like the generations before you, and it's balance. It's balance, it's authenticity, it's access, it's how much of yourself to sort of reveal. So Anyway, please join me thanking our Generation Z panel.
We thank you for being here. We are so indebted to the Undefeated, to the talent and the organization they brought. It was a fantastic night. Unlike you, you're going off to do this 6 more times in the next 3 days. This, for us, is a very unique experience, so thank you so much for making it happen.